All right, back again. So I know this is kind of silly, 3 streams in like 18 hours. I'm really, I swear I'm doing this to learn, not to be annoying or weird. And so I did a stream last night to sort of get set up. And then a stream this morning to just get an idea of what it would be like to do it better than I did last night. And then the other type of stream I wanted to do would be like an open chat. So I figured I would fire up Jitsi and see what this was like. So that's what I'm doing right now. Anyone wants to jump in to Jitsi, let me know. I'll actually just throw it in the chat. I apologize for my cough. I have a chronic cough, and just as annoying for me as it is to imagine. Like to join. I was just going to do a quick stream to, again, test this out, and then I was going to also maybe show some of the KDE Plasma updates. I started looking at it earlier and wasn't able to figure out Dolphin setup. So the terminal console has split consoles that are pretty. I'll go back through that again just real quick, and I wanted to show the Dolphin thing because it is cool. I just couldn't figure it out, and I didn't know where to find it. So we'll wait a couple minutes. I also fully recognize that I'm doing this without any kind of prior notice, and I don't really expect that many people to this and show up. But if anyone's out there and would like to test, cool. All right. So if anyone's watching this later, I don't want them to just sit here and stare at me, do nothing. So I will go ahead and just look at the news again. All right. So KDE. Applications 1908. We've got some new features: console, Dolphin, Kdenlive, Ocular, and dozens of other apps, which is sort of the KDE way. And something I showed earlier on the stream that I'll just run through again real quick because I happen to know how to do it now is the split consoles, which is pretty cool. All right. So this was flickering quite badly earlier, and hopefully that doesn't happen this time. It doesn't appear to be at this point, and keep an eye on that. All right, so console. If you use Control and Paren, and then Control Shift, Control W. All right, so you can split consoles on a single, or split terminals in a single instance of console. The console's always had tabbed splits, or tabs, I guess, and you could flip between tabs, but sometimes it's a lot easier to just see multiple consoles at one time, and maybe it's overkill to have 4. So, you know, maybe what you really have is there we go. So maybe you have 2 consoles side by side, and you know, you do a you know, so if you're adminning servers and stuff like that, this is really handy because you can see things side by side, and it's nice to have that in a single console session. And you know, it's a nice thing that they've added this. This is kind of reminiscent of a tiling window manager or something like that, like i3, where you'd be able to use all of the space for terminals. And so this supporting this is a nice feature. All right, the thing that I couldn't figure out earlier because it wasn't completely obvious was Dolphin has some new bookmark functionality, and basically it's almost like a web browser in a way. So there's some abilities to create bookmarks to specific files and folders. Files, I don't know, we'll check files. Folders, and then you can also have tabs. The Dolphin supports tabs, and you'd be able to have multiple tabs open. Let's say you use that tab group on a regular basis, then you would be able to save those tabs and have it open those tabs again. It's very much like a browser. So you could do the same thing with saving open tabs in a browser and then coming back and open those tabs again. And that's a shortcut way to get back to a specific thing, you know, task or something you're undertaking. You always need to see these 3 or 4 folders, so you can have them open in open for you by saving the bookmarks. So what that looks like, and the thing I had to figure out was I added a button up here for this. That was not there to start with, and what I had to do was actually dig down into Control and what was it? Tools? No. So yeah, I thought I knew. Configure toolbars. There we go. Okay, so bookmarks was over here on the left, and I had to actually add it. So I put a separator in, and then the bookmarks, and so now that shows up here. And that acts as sort of a toggle button where you can add a bookmark all the tabs as a folder, create a new folder, you know, edit the bookmarks you have. I hadn't actually looked at this yet. Again, this is all very familiar in terms of how a browser would function, and it's interesting that they've sort of brought this back into Dolphin, particularly since Conqueror was, all those years ago, it was the web/file browser for KDE, and it had similar functionality where it just was a browser of things, whether it was a file system or a web browser. And so this is sort of bringing that back. So you see I created a test folder here, and if I were to come up to bookmarks, a test folder, it's showing me the bookmarks I have. and then I can also open all of those. So like I was saying, if this is a workflow that you have where you needed to see the same folders all the time, the shadows weren't there because the compositor wasn't there, and this looked weird. Okay, so the tabs are open, and those are your bookmarks. So if I were to close this down, say quit Dolphin, and then come back at some later point, and I wanted to use that same layout, I could come to bookmarks, test folder, and open in tabs, and then here you see that's just going to reopen. That's pretty cool. Will I use it? I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure I can think of a reason to. Maybe if I was doing something like creating video content and I had, you know, a source folder and an output folder and, you know, 2 or 3 other folders that I was always going to want to have access to while I was creating that content, editing that content, whatever. Maybe I create a tab group here, a folder, and then be able to just come back and use that over and over again instead of taking the extra time and steps to do that. So kind of cool, you know, different, something interesting. So the other thing that it has is just individual bookmarks themselves. So I did a bookmark to, you know, local, and you see those just show up here. So that would be maybe another quick thing. So you can already do things like add this places. And so if I wanted to come back to this all the time, maybe I just have this under places. But that could get kind of messy here if you, let's say you had tens or dozens, you know, of potential bookmarks. I can see how having it be a separate, you know, area of the UI makes sense. So that's pretty cool. I thought that was an interesting new option. You know, that's KDE for you, continuing to think how can I add more things in here, and they do it generally pretty well, so that it's not too messy and that it's actually functions pretty well. So, all right, let's go back and see what else is. So, Ocular has annotations easier to configure, customize, manage. Not necessarily something I'm all that stoked about. I mean, Ocular's fine, does what it does. So, also updated Kate, better at sorting recent files, similar to Dolphin. Kate will now focus on existing windows when opening files from other apps. Updates Contact, so not anything I'm particularly. I don't use Contact personally. I know a lot of people do, and WinView has the image viewer, extended EXIF metadata for raw images, share photos and access remote files more easily, and generate better thumbnails. That's great. WinView is already pretty good application. I like that you can do some simple edits, cropping and resizing and things like that, which is something that a lot of image viewers don't have. That's a great thing. Spectacle, which is the screenshot application, already pretty extensive and handy. Looks like for adding. Let you open the screenshot right after you've saved it, and useful touches to delay functionality, which is nice. So those are the highlights. And like I said, I think for me the most interesting ones are console dolphin. But you know what? I'm just gonna take a look at spectacle real quick. Grab not spectacle. Gwenview. Let me grab a few. Three or four here. Have some. Grab 6 for. All right, so this is Gwenview. Nice thumbnail option. Here and rotate. Like I said, so what's nice about this is you've got the information, and this is where they're saying that the EXIF information is going to show up. So if raw, there were any other information here, you can add things. Okay. Keep that for you, part of the image now. And like I said, also there's some nice operations that are just simple and basic things that you would normally need to do to an image that a lot of image viewers don't incorporate. And I get that it's separation of concerns and trying to keep things simple and functional, but you know, when you're looking at an image, to be able to just quickly be able to crop something. So let's say I wanted to make this a wallpaper. You know, that size is not going to be great for a wallpaper, but I can crop this. Say I want to keep this part of the image. Crop that. Actually, you know what? Let me undo it. And nice as I can actually crop that. Set a specific aspect. It's not showing me dimension. But that's okay. I'll just make it a little bit taller. Let's do that. What is also nice is it's not destroying the original image, so you can save it. So you can save over the original image. Save as, say, hey Steve, how's it going, man? If you want to help me test, just for the fun of it, if you're able to, jump in Jitsi. Just that's really I'm mainly just testing. So I have the, and if not, that's cool. I'll just keep rambling on about KDE. All right, so I wanted to save this as, I don't even know what you call that. Bluffs. I'm gonna call it a bluff. And save that. And so what's yeah, Steve, I'll be on for a little bit. I'm just gonna sit here and I'm just killing time until Biddle anyway, and so yeah, I'll hang out for a bit. See if I can get anybody else to show up. Oh, and you can't see me, so hey. Oh, did my oh, it's because there we go. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm sure I can ramble for. Ask anyone that knows. Yeah, I can ramble for about. Um, okay, so there we were, Gwenview. Now we've got this nice cropped image, and so let's go back and this one, and you see how this is just it's really convenient, right? It just makes it easy to do these quick little operations. Crop that out as only. Uh, and there you go. Yeah, Gwenview's great, and a lot of KDE tools are really great. Um, they do a really good job of putting a lot of features in, and they're not always perfect, but it's just useful to have them. And I really like that crop feature. I like the resize. I like all of those things. You know, maybe this wallpaper is too big and I want it smaller. Whatever it is, right? And I do a lot of stuff with like images for the web. So for me in particular, this is handy because it just makes it a lot easier to grab that image from somewhere, and I need it to be a specific size, and rather than firing up GIMP or something like that, come in here and very easily resize it down to whatever size I need, name it, and or save it as. So very slick. All right. So let's see. Thought I'd have more KDE stuff to talk. Um, Bear with me while I find something. All right. So something else that I've been doing that I use that I do and use on a regular basis is um, VirtualBox, obviously for testing distribution. And oh, actually, yeah. You know what? I'm gonna go back to Endeavor because I was working on that early. I installed Cinnamon, and I would like to go ahead and get Mint theme. I will do that. Um, so yes, so I have Mint installed. Um, I have, and this is Endeavor with Cinnamon, and as I was saying earlier, so Endeavor eventually will have an online installer that will. Hey, Vince, going man, Mark. Uh, I'm just sitting here rambling. If anyone feels like joining, I think Steve's gonna be on in a little bit and test that out. But yakking away, so you get to listen to me. I was just talking about Endeavor a little bit, and so Endeavor comes with XFC. XFC's my thing. Not that it's bad by any stretch of the imagination. I know 4.14 just came out. I'm sure we'll talk about that. Uh, no, I it's great. It is like one of those constants, right? You know, always there for you. Peppermint, that I've said makes sense that Endeavor would pick that as well. But the beautiful thing about Endeavor is that it is Arch base, whatever you want on there. So in my case, I installed it here in a virtual machine. Um, um, I put cinnamon on it, but one of the things I always do with cinnamon, I like to have them that complements best. So I'm going to go ahead and run through how to do that real quick for anyone trying that. In case it isn't painfully obvious, I'm cinnamon. Uh, no idea why my microphone keeps getting turned down. So this has ARC on it by default, and events like many cinnamon was my intro into Linux a little over a year ago. Yeah, if you've joined up and were using Mint, you know that's kind of your intro. It's funny because I started with KDE and GNOME 2 with Ubuntu back in the day, but when Mint first came out and Cinnamon was a thing, it was definitely impressive, and I've followed it all along. And it's this latest release, so this version of Cinnamon that's available in Arch is the same one that's available in Mint 19.2 Tina, and it is it's iterative. There aren't a huge amount of changes, but there's some nice things. They've lightened it up. The performance is a little better. You can change the vsync settings on the fly. Just some creature comfort sort of stuff. But they keep continuing to build this really impressive desktop environment. So um, for me, Mint unfortunately doesn't run all that great on my system, and it's an LTS base, and they they do some weird things, and it makes it a little difficult sometimes for me to use it. So I would absolutely recommend it for people to use, especially newer users, because it is such a well thought out and put together system. But I think as you advance a little further, you find other cases where things just it works a little better. Other systems maybe are a little easier to customize or set up the way you want. So um, anyway, but all that aside, I still love cinnamon, and I still prefer the way that Mint themes cinnamon. So I'm going to go out and actually just the grab the themes, and basically they're on GitHub. So get on here. Yes, it is. Okay, so I need to install Ruby SAS. And then I need to grab the GitHub URLs. And we want themes. Git clone. Get that going. And then we want int y icons. Those. Clone. Okay. And we'll go in here. So go into mint themes and we want to do make and generate the actual theme files themselves. So it comes with the source files, but it has to compile them against your system. And so it's going to go out and create the files that it needs in the themes. And the icons are already, they're just there. So all you need to do is actually copy them. And you can either put them in your local, your personal folder. So under your local folder, there's share, and you can create an icons and a theme folders in here. The problem I've had with locally installed themes or per user themes or user level themes, whatever the best way to say that was, is that sometimes applications don't pick up on those. Sorry guys, hang on one second. It's my wife. Hello. Oh boy, my poor wife. She got roped into going out with with one of her friends and their children. She thought it was going to be a 3 hour thing, and she's literally she's she's really unhappy because she wanted to do other stuff today. You know how that is. Anyway, that is super cool that you installed Kubuntu desktop with backport on. Seriously, I didn't even pop into my mind to try that, so I'm definitely going to give that a shot because I love the bass of pop. Um, and I've actually been having some issues with Kubuntu 1904 with frozen up on me a couple times, which is very, very odd. The tray itself um, panel on the bottom will freeze, and I can't access any icons. And then I can't even restart the shell or log out. I have to. I mean, I can still use the apps. I can alt tab to switch between, but I don't know what's going on. There he is.
Good afternoon.
How are you, sir?
I am fine. So, starting the stream, huh?
Well, all the cool kids are doing it, so I thought, I can't let you guys jeopardize all of the fun. Or not jeopardize, monopolize all the fun.
There you go.
So, yeah, I did a stream last night. It was my first one, and I don't know. It was rough. I'm doing it with a single monitor on my laptop, and so it's hard, as you know, to. I've got the OBS window, and then I've got the content that I'm trying to show, and if you resize it, it gets all wonky, and then I've got the chat that I'm trying to watch, and like everything else, it's just like juggling like circus. And
oh yeah.
So anyway, so how you doing today, sir?
Oh, finally got off of work. It was rough week. Even though I just got back to work Thursday from my vacation. Got a lot of stuff going on. Had someone quit on me this morning via text.
Via text. Wow.
Via text.
How modern. Quit via text. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I wouldn't even have thought of that. Good Lord. Was that someone new or long term?
Relatively new. She was hired before I was got to the store. I don't even want to get into that. Take up your screen the whole time.
No, not at all. I've just been sitting here rambling and just trying to Vince. No, actually, you know what, Vince? It's funny. So I don't know if you've seen on my channel, I did a you can use your tablet with a little app called Vert Screen, and you can create a separate essentially like a VNC display, and then it becomes just something you can extend off of your main display, and then use your tablet with a VNC viewer app to load that up. The problem is the virtual display makes things a little wonky. So I streamed earlier today, and I had all kinds of problems with graphical glitches, and I think that's what was causing it. So I don't have it on right now, and it seems like everything's working fine. So as an alternative, I found a little, I think it's 11-inch external portable monitor that just runs off a USB, and it's supposedly high resolution, and it's on its way. So we'll see how that goes. That'll certainly help. But where I am, I don't have a lot of desk space, so it's actually nice. It'll just be a small little side display that I can have all of this stuff that I'm trying to flip back and forth that I can have over out of my way. So yeah, not balancing on my lap, but something close to it. So Steve, before you joined, I was just running through. I'm going to finish just something I was looking at. So installing, I'm using Endeavor, and I'm installing the Cinnamon desktop. XFC is great and all, but I'm I'm enjoying Cinnamon nowadays. So I've been installing it everywhere I can, and so I wanted to. I really like the default look of Mint with the Mint theme, so I'm actually installing that right now, just to sort of make that look more like a Mint clone, I guess. And I was just talking about the difference between installing themes for your user account versus system wide. And my wife called, and I had like a 10-minute conversation with her. So anyway,
I know how that is.
yeah, it was kind of unavoidable. You don't not answer the phone when your wife calls,
Right. And you go, honey, I'm doing
sorry,
a stream.
right? I'm busy, Yeah, that doesn't work. You won't be streaming much longer if you keep doing that type of thing. So,
Yeah. Well, it's like a couple times where I was late because we were talking about Christmas trees in the middle of June.
hey, that had to be answered right away. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to install Endeavor. I was having problems on the laptop that I was trying to install it on. I was having boot problems. I don't know if it's because I had pulled that hard drive out of one laptop, and I put it in another. And I'm not sure if there's a hidden boot partition now because of it. But Endeavor will not, no matter what I do, no matter how big I make the boot the boot file. And sorry if you hear ice cream music in the background. The window's open, and now they decide to go by and sell ice cream.
Go get me something.
Yeah. So I mean, I've G-parted it. I mean, I've cleared it, created new partitions. I've went and installed Peppermint back on it. I had gotten a bootloader error on that, but it's still booted up. So I'm wondering if I put it back in the other laptop again, if I'll see. I don't know if laptop. Jeepers, that's loud. Sorry, is that annoying? Can you hear that?
We can hear it, but it's
Okay.
not that bad. It's
Okay.
actually really funny.
It's like, whatever. If I'm on a stream, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Right,
So,
right, exactly. Hey, it's real life,
yeah.
man. That's how it works.
Vince probably ran out of his house. Wait, ice cream? No. Because it's 7 o'clock in the morning for you, Vince?
Yeah, when he jumped on, he's like, I just woke up. What's going on?
Yeah. But I don't. That's some of the stuff that I still am trying to learn. So, and the things I hear is that if you pull a hard drive out of one machine, you got Linux on, and put in another, it should boot up okay. I haven't had that. I tried that with Peppermint on there. I had issues, but of course I had issues. It was after I had issues with the NVIDIA driver when Peppermint finally updated to the 5.0 kernel. That could be an issue. So I don't know if the boot partition gets hidden if you move from one laptop to another. Does that? I mean, that's.
It's interesting. So I last week I got this laptop, and it came with Windows, obviously, and I never booted it. It had an NVMe drive, and when I first got it, I had the NVMe drive from my previous Linux, from my previous laptop, and that I had passed on to my wife. I just put her drive in that, and then I took mine out. And so when I got this laptop, I just opened it up, put that drive in, and never booted Windows, and never even thought about it. And last week, for some crazy reason, I thought, you know what, I'm just curious to see how Windows runs on this thing. So I opened it back up and I put the one that came with it in there. And even though it was the same stock drive, I never touched it, it wouldn't boot. And I think it had to do something with the UEFI BIOS settings. It would not catch. And so I went and got a restored disk and tried to fix the boot, and that didn't work. So I ended up having to completely reinstall just to get the bootloader to recognize that partition. So
Uh,
and I've also seen, and I think it might have been Endeavor that was talking about instead of the boot flag, they actually, I think you set the ESP flag or something like that now. So that could be. I mean,
yeah,
there's so many combinations of the way the BIOS is going to see it and the way that the flags are on the partition schemes and layouts.
yeah. Because I thought I had EFI turned off on the laptop. I've looked in BIOS and it got turned back on. Every time I turn it off, it gets turned back on. So I'm not sure if the BIOS is just not saving it, because I wanted to see, well, if I'll try it in Legacy. But I keep the error message. I pretty much, when I posted it on a Telegram group, Frank or Bill had said that it's showing that the EFI bootloader is full. So
Oh.
it can't be full.
Hmm.
So I even went in, because I was following Colin's video to a T, and set up the manual partitions the way he was doing it. Put the flags in there, the ESP and bootloader. But I even went to a gig size in the EFI, for the boot.
Mm-hmm.
Still telling me that same. I'm getting the same error.
That almost sounds more like a read-only kind of thing, where or just can't read it, because yeah, a gig should be. I mean, I make mine usually about
Yeah.
512 and never have a problem. So
Because I've
gig.
used both GNOME disk, which sees it as a 320 gig hard drive, but when I bring up Gparted, it shows it at 298.
Hmm.
And I even use, so at the 320, I used GNOME disk to do a full format of the hard drive. I did it in ext4. Now, if I remember right, when you do format a hard drive in ext4, it puts a certain percentage to the side. It does not use the whole. I forget the reasoning. I remember seeing it on one of Joe Collins' videos, that it puts a certain amount of space. You don't get that full, like if it's mine 320, it puts a certain percentage aside for, and I can't remember. I have to go back and probably find that video.
Well, there's
Anybody
some
that's
overhead
probably
of
better.
like, yeah, I mean, there's overhead of like journaling and other stuff where it's reserving some of it for the file system itself.
Uh-huh.
So the
So,
file system's giving you as much space as it can, but there is some overhead.
yeah,
Depending on the file system, it can be worse.
yeah,
ext4 is usually pretty low overhead, but I know some of the other ones tend to take up.
yeah.
So
Because it's just odd that disk shows it as 320, and then you bring up Gparted and just shows it as 298.
hmm.
But I was getting so aggravated with it this week that it's like nothing technical was going right for me. I mean, I've been spending 2 weeks now in uh, the wonderful world of Windows. So I've talked about the nice little DOS Bluetooth speaker set that I have. That great sound to it. Hooks up to any of my Linux laptops, even the cloud ready
Hmm.
Chromium book that I put together
Okay.
flawlessly. Was working with my wife's Windows 10 laptop. Now, no matter what I do, that Bluetooth will not hook up to uh, the Windows 10 Bluetooth. It shows that it's paired. It shows that it's connected. You start playing some audio or video, it knocks it back out. And I've been spending about 2 weeks trying to fix it. I don't know what the issue could be. I mean, I've looked at all the videos that will fix Bluetooth on Windows 10. I ran an update, got the most current driver from Asus in there for the Bluetooth. Can't figure it out.
Hmm.
I'm telling my wife, like, this crap keeps up, and you're getting Linux, and she just looks at me.
Does she do anything specific to Windows that would like she couldn't do on Linux?
No, she's just she had wanted a Windows 10 laptop because the library she works at went with they upgraded to Windows 10 and she wanted to learn Windows 10. But it's only it's a nice little Asus. What do they call them now? Vivio book now instead of netbook. They're giving it a fancy name.
Something like that. No, that's
Via,
Sony.
yeah,
That's Sony has the
yeah,
Vio.
Vivi,
Yeah.
yeah, whatever. And a nice little. I think that it's also the Asus laptop that they have installed um, uh, uh, Chrome on it, Chrome OS.
Okay.
But it's only got a 32 gig eMMC hard drive in there, which right now, and she saves really nothing. I think there's 3 files on there that she's put on there. Her shopping list, her grocery list, she runs a book club at the library, her book club list, and something else. She saves nothing else. No pictures, no audio, no nothing. And that I have 6 gigs free out of 32 gig hard drive. I've deleted out any saved portion of the old Windows 10 system and all that. It's just kind of, I don't know, ridiculous that Windows takes up so much of a hard drive.
It is unbelievable. Yeah, my desktop is still Windows and always has been, and I don't use it very often. But the boot drive is a 128 gig SSD, and I've also got some just programs installed on there. And the other day I noticed that it was down to like 10 gigs free, and I thought, what's taking it up? So I used a disk, a graphical disk sort of overview utility, and yeah, Windows takes up 70 gigs. 70 gigs of the drive, and a lot of it is that X shadow volume, whatever that.
Yeah.
I don't use Windows enough anymore to even really remember, but I spent about an hour trying to figure out, is there a way for me to reclaim that? And I did all of the disk cleanup and get rid of Windows updates, backups, and all of that kind of stuff, and it's still, I mean, I think I maybe got back 10 gigs, but yeah, it is amazing. And it's funny you say that too, because English Bob just did a video, I think it was last week, about if you're switching to Linux, some of the reasons, and it was more about Biddle as well. I think you commented on that, but he made the point about why would you want to use Linux, and that was one of the reasons he said was because Windows does take up so much space. So if you're getting a device that doesn't have a large disk in it, or if it's a lot of systems have soldered on storage too, so it's not even like you have the option of upgrading.
Right.
And if you don't get a big enough storage space and you're using Windows, then all of a sudden, you're out of space. And like I said, there's nothing I could see to do to be able to reclaim that space, which is, I mean, what do you do at that point? It's, use external storage. I don't know. It becomes challenging to deal with. So I thought that was interesting that he made that observation. Hey, Peter, what's happening, man?
And Sleepy says, motherboard sounds like it might be going since you swapped the HDD and it failed to keep the FI legacy setting. Could be. I hope not. I mean, it's a laptop that I had Peppermint on, and it was running flawlessly. The only reason why I had changed is because of the Intel graphics. It wasn't. It wouldn't run OBS. So yeah, because I pulled it out of the NVIDIA laptop. But I may run an experiment with my wife. She'll go to, because I can always reinstall Windows 10 back on that laptop. Install something a little more modern, even though the thing is, it's got 4 gigs of RAM in there. So I know it will run most any Linux fine, but I would like to put something, maybe I might even make Peter happy and install Solus on there. I might just do it and say, here, try this. I changed your laptop around, because all she does is use Chrome, Google, the browser, does web searching, does her email, does YouTube for yoga and exercise videos, and that. So there's no program that she really uses, although she does download a lot of audiobooks to her Kindle, and that doesn't always work with Linux. So that might be a big issue for her.
So Peter just dropped a bomb on me. He said he runs Solus. I never knew that. Oh,
Peter, you changed?
Yeah, really. All right. I'm gonna run through this Mint thing real quick.
All right.
All right. So, point I was making about local installing themes under your local user account versus system wide. So, something I've noticed is that Flatpaks and some other packages will not read your locally or your user based installs of themes and icons. And this could just be certain Flatpaks that do that, but I've just noticed that that could be an issue. And so the theming isn't consistent. And one of the reasons I like Flatpaks so much is because they are generally consistent with your desktop environment. So I normally will just install stuff under the system. And there's really, I mean, I guess you could mess something up if you did, but I really don't think so, because in this case I'm just copying things in. I'm not like, I wouldn't edit files in there or something like that, because then you could and I wouldn't install things that I didn't know where they came from. But in this case, I got this from the GitHub repository, so I don't think it's going to be an issue. But so I downloaded the icons, I've compiled the themes, and now I'm just going to copy them over to user share themes. Oh, actually, I want to copy the local user share themes, everything to and then same thing for the icons. And the -R just means copy everything, including folders. So if I don't include that, so you, because I do this all the time, and then I'm like, why didn't I do this? It'll tell me because I didn't specify the R, it's not going to copy a directory. So you got to put that R flag in there. And so, okay, now those are installed, and I can just come over to desktop settings, themes, and now you see I've got my Mint themes in here. And go ahead and do dark just for the fun of it. Dark red. And so now this looks just like Mint look. And like I said, there's something, I just like the way this looks. It's visually consistent, and it also makes sense because Mint is the one developing Cinnamon, so you would think their native themes would probably be obviously very tailored to Cinnamon itself. And the spacing of it, the coloring, the shading, all of it just, I think, looks appropriate. And so this is Endeavor with Cinnamon, with the Mint themes, and now essentially you've got an Arch-based version of the latest release of Cinnamon. And yeah, pretty slick.
Nice.
Cool. What else is going on today, people? Got a stream, a couple hours.
Yeah, I probably, if I jump on, it won't be until the second half because I don't not going to get Endeavor installed, so I'm like, I have nothing to kind of say about it. And it's not Endeavor's fault, possibly. I'll I don't know if I'll have time today. Swap out the hard drive again, put it back in the other one, see if I still have some kind of issues.
Gotcha. Um, well, I mean, hopefully you can make it, and
Yeah, I'll jump on for maybe the second half.
okay,
Yeah, because I don't. I always feel like if I have nothing to say, I'm not going to take up screen time. And
right.
you know, uh,
I told Rocco that one day. I was like, I feel like there's enough people that are trying to get a word in edgewise that if I don't have anything that I feel is, I mean, I could just say, oh, well, I tried it and didn't like it, or I liked it, or I mean, if I don't feel like I have any constructive feedback, then I mean, am I really adding to the conversation? I guess.
right, and and then it's one of the things with him, doing it too. It's great, at 2 weeks, but not if 2 weeks of bad luck, and um, but there's still that some get on, and they're kind of keeping track on who talked about it the previous week and that. But I don't know. It's just a personal kind of like, hey, I'm not adding anything, so why should I keep my mug up there and take up screen time and just to have Ron go, well, how about you, Steve? And I'm like, oh, no, I didn't do anything. And next, and give the person there a chance.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that.
Vince says, I think that should be your input on Biddle. I'm sure someone could offer a tidbit of advice that might help. And Dorian and Bill both had a couple of good tips, but just didn't pan out for me. And you know, like I said, when I did, then I'm like, okay, let me install something else, and I went and installed Peppermint, and I got a kind of like bootloader error that the system might not boot. Reboot it, and it booted right back up to Peppermint, and I didn't have any problems. So, and I did notice that with Peppermint, when you do the just erase and don't select manual petitions or that, it pretty much does it. Doesn't the mount point was the whole thing. There was no different. There was no bootloader and all that. So I don't know if that maybe is an issue, or maybe there's something hiding in there because of the other laptop. Those are the things that I'm still trying to learn and figure out.
So Jan inspired me. He he was saying that he's got Pop OS with Kubuntu installed. Well, the Kubuntu desktop sort of installed on top, and then KDE backports. So it now it's bugging me. I want to try it, so I'm going to do that in the background just while we're chatting.
Vince says I sound like a Peppermint salesperson. Me?
Big Daddy Peppermint.
Thank you, Gnostic, for that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's not hard to sell something that you use and believe in. I mean, Peppermint is honestly, if I was going to run XFCE and wanted just a great out of the box experience, like I'm out of all the ones I've tried, the only one that comes close, and I don't know if it doesn't, people don't talk about this one very much, but it's called Linux Lite. And they also do a really nice job of customizing XFC. It's very clean, very modern looking. It's a little bit lighter than Peppermint in terms of the theming and stuff, but same basic principle.
Yeah, it's like a more of a flat theme. Yeah, it looks definitely looks much better than it has in the past. Some of the wallpaper and that, it looks really sweet. It is a nice setup on that. And then what the I was hearing how Endeavor, at least I could get the live version of Endeavor. I can get that to run and take a look at it. But to me, it looks a lot like KDE. It almost looks Qt-ish. I don't know how they customize the whisker menu. Now, that would be fun to learn, how to be able to customize that whisker menu to get it looking different. Because I know, oh, what's his name, Jacques, that did he's got I know Biddles did a couple on him. I can't uh, where Lindos, he's got Lindos, and he's like really has customized the XFCE, the whisker panel, to look really different. Yeah, it'd
Yeah.
be probably cool to learn how to code and do that to change up the whisker menu a bit, which I like. I mean, I like it fine.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that they don't. Well, so Linux Lite and Peppermint, they obviously do a lot of customization. But if you were to just install like Arch, throw XFCE on there, or Ubuntu, honestly, I don't know if the latest Ubuntu they did switch to Whisker, but I know for a while they just had the default menu, and it doesn't have the search in it, which is really I think in terms of a modern menu, that's
Mm-hmm.
what people expect. I want to be able to just hit the super key and start
Yeah,
searching for what I'm looking for.
that's the way I like it. And I don't do any desktop icons or panel icons whatsoever outside of my menu and the files, because I'm just now so fond of just hitting that super key and then start typing, the first couple initials. And it's just so much quicker than, okay, where's that? Oh, there it is. Double click and,
Yeah.
double click for the win. I like the idea of single click, but I know if I change that and my wife gets on here, I'd be like, what did you do? But she's
You know,
used to, like, going back to that for a second. She does use I'm on my desktop right now, and she does come up here to do out of her banking and bill paying and all that on Peppermint. She is used to that. Um, so I might just throw that at her. Hey, let me try something else with you. But I guess I'm gonna have to research to see if I can, um, if she's able to put her books on her Kindle through something like, because I would go maybe with something like Zorin on there. Zorin or possibly Solus, a little more modern looking for her. Um, I know I'd be stretching it with only the 4 gigs of memory, which I cannot update on there. So I'm with you, Peter. Top panel for the win. Single click. Where I don't like the single click is getting into the file, and I don't want it to open. Sometimes I just want to move it. I don't want to have to hold on a shift key to or right click and then click on it. If I want to move it, I want to click and hold it and then drag it over. Sensor says, I'm still on PEP 10 and really begin to like it. But first of all, I just want to try it, but it seems I'm stuck. Yeah, Peppermint does that to you. It just, because it's pretty rock solid. And it comes pretty decently themed, but doesn't mean it, when, if anybody will look at my Peppermint desktop, the only thing that tells you that it's Peppermint is I left a little Peppermint sign on the menu. Otherwise, I actually do like the look of kind of like Gnome 2-ish. I just, Gnome 2, I like better than Gnome, but I still have a thing about Gnome. I just like XFCE because it is so customizable. Oh,
you get used to a style and the way something works and how you use it.
yeah. Yeah, Sleepy, the one thing about XFCE, you can always count on it being stable. It is. And yes, your gnomes, your KDEs, even your gnome 2s can look so much more modern. But you guys, I think so. I have the Adapta Notoko, uh, the dark theme for Adapta setup, which I had to install. The peppermint is nice. To me, it's got maybe a little bit of a tinge of brown in there that I'm not really particular. Doesn't mean I don't like what they did. I just, the thing about, as we always talk about in our Linux, is we can just make it our own, and once I set it up the way I've barely changed this setup. I've tried so many different variations, and I'm kind of stuck on it is GNOME 2 setup, but it's XFCE. Yeah, Sensor spent 2 weeks in time to theme it. Don't like the default themes in PEP. And what's cool now, especially now they got the panel switcher added to it, you can make several different looking desktops and change them when you get bored and not have to worry about it. And change back. Or do panel reset and go back to the very beginning. To me, that's like an awesome tool. Peter said he heard you mentioning ice cream there, Eric. That was because there was an ice cream truck. I had my window open, and you can hear it pretty loud. Peter likes the Cold Stone Creamery. You know they put pudding in their ice cream, don't you, Peter? That's what keeps it from melting. That's your ice cream tip of the day.
I had never had custard. Discovered it not all that long ago, and then where is this?
That's the soft serve, right? Is that?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
so
Or,
they call it a concrete at the place I go, and they love to they flip it upside down.
the DQ.
It's just a local place, but yeah, they do
They do the same thing.
kind of the same thing. It's a gimmick. I'm
Yeah.
always like, I get it. You
Yeah.
don't have to do it, but they're like,
Let's wait 2 minutes.
yeah,
Then
right.
your hand to the. But yeah, they put cold to keep the ice cream from melting fast. They put pudding in their ice cream. Oh, did I just throw some ice cream shade? Vince says.
Yeah, for some reason we're all. I think you might have done that on purpose.
No, if that's, I mean, I'm just saying, is, if they, Cold Creamery, Cold Stone, their ice cream doesn't melt. Well, it's because they put pudding in it. I've never really had, I think I might have had it once.
Yeah, they just opened them here. So Sarasota is interesting in Florida because you get a lot of Western come from. So we're starting to get those businesses here. So we've got Stone, Culver. See more of that on the West Coast.
Vince is about to fry up some bacon. You'll get Paul to come there, Vince. When we were up in Wisconsin last weekend, Sunday we went to the Wisconsin State Fair on our way back, and my brother-in-law mentions to my son that one of the trailers has cinnamon roll topped with bacon chips. So he had a bacon cinnamon roll with icing on top of it. I had posted that. I don't remember if I posted the picture on MeWe. I might have to. He ate the whole thing, and it was huge. It was about this big and about that thick. It better have been big because it was $8 for a cinnamon roll.
You know, it's funny that might be one of those the American thing, bacon on.
It's been a lot of going. Yeah, salty sweet has been like the theme for the last several years. If you look at like a lot of our candy bars and that, or like your jalapeno chocolates and stuff like that, spicy sweet.
I've always been a combination. I love things like salted caramel, that kind of stuff. My wife got hardtack stuck on them.
Sensor is asking, do you know when the XFC 414 is coming to PEP 10? I honestly not sure if it's going to come down in an update. I don't know. I'm going to have to look on the forum and see if Mark has posted anything.
My guess is with they would have to kind of backport it.
Yeah.
I think less backport. Does Peppermint have its own repository? Peppermint's
Not for they have a few things like uh, even though like GIMP is still 2.8 in the repository, they have it 210 in you can install a Peppermint PPA for it. So they don't have a lot of their own that. So I guess it depends on if he's able to add it to the respinner. It might not be out until they do Peppermint 11 next year.
you're gray in rust.
Okay. I can see that it's showing red here.
Very artistic.
I don't know. Hey, good old Comcast. Usually it's pretty good.
Well, I
I've still
remembered
got.
from before that I had problems with Firefox. Kept video up and if it was premium.
Okay, turn it off, turn it back on. I went from red to yellow, and now it's green. Am I back? No, is it on the YouTube end or on your end that it was?
My end, but then by virtue of that,
I just went to red.
I don't see your camera. Still hear you though.
I can close the browser and come back. And I because I'm on Chromium too.
Okay.
So yeah, Firefox doesn't always work too well. So yeah, let me see. I'll be right back.
So yeah, Jay, you or Jan, John, that you inspired me back on top.
Hello again.
Yep. Back full color.
All right. I just went to Chrome this time just to see the difference.
Oh,
Peter says I'm promoting 50 Shades of Grey. Finding out that most women who never read a book read that and read the series. My sister-in-law hated reading, read all the books. She's got all the versions of the movies between her phone or TV. My assistant who hated reading, of course, oh yeah, I read that one. That explains a lot.
all right. And like the beginning.
Hey Adam, how you doing, bud? This is what's going on here. Eric is streaming. I got a kind of a quiet house. My son decided to he wanted a 2-hour workout. He wanted an hour at the club and an hour in the pool. So rock your socks. He is becoming one solid kid, which is good because of, mentioned many times that he's a young adult with autism, and between his working out and his karate, he is in some awesome shape. Puts me to shame, but I would have gone with him. I'm having some really bad back problems the last couple of days. I'm afraid to
Oh,
get
that's
up.
not good.
No.
Yeah, Adam, I don't know what happened. This is the third time now that something has set my volume back down to like 50%.
I think Carmine had, Total S has mentioned that is one of the reasons why he doesn't like using Jitsi, because he can't control it.
Oh, maybe that's it. I don't know.
The Jitsi kind of controls it itself for some reason. I don't know if.
Well, with OBS, so I've got the desktop audio is you, and then I'm using a different audio stream
Right.
for my mic and combining them. So I don't know. I keep muting to cough, so maybe there's something where when I'm muting, I'm somehow rolling my mouse, or I don't know.
Yeah. So what? So you're muting on OBS, or are you muting on?
Well, so I had been muting in both places because I didn't want to cough in your ear and I didn't want to cough on them. So with Cinnamon, you can actually middle click on the volume and it'll mute your input if you set it up that way. And so that's what I've been doing, but I wonder if I'm clicking and then that's somehow causing it to lower the volume. Not sure. But yeah, this sounds best around 80, and I've got it's like way up here. Because if I get it too close to me, it's way, way, way too loud.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because like in the view here, it looks like it's kind of far, but actually I'm just like about 6 or so inches away from it. But I have my dial on the volume on the microphone probably at a quarter, because if I turn this up, you guys can really hear a lot of it. And that's like the complaint that I got when I first started using this and that. So I keep this low, and everything else seems to be okay through whether I use OBS or the other.
So Peter's updating Ubuntu Budgie 1910. Oh, are you doing testing, Peter, or are you just checking it out for yourself? Because every now and then I'll jump and grab one of the new Aeon, I think is how you say that. The 1910 releases of whatever Ubuntu variant and try it out.
Yeah, that's why I was what Zeb posted like about 200 videos on every update he was doing after his holiday, all his distributions. And, I think about maybe getting like an icy dock so I can have different ones, but I'm like, going through and updating everything. I know it's relatively quick, and in Linux, that's not a problem in that. But then, okay, I got to go into each distribution and update. And
Yeah, and I don't. Um, I know people say that virtual machines are not a valid test, and I agree that there are definitely things that you can uncover installing on bare metal. But I think even if people were just willing to test on virtual machines, so that's what I've got. I just got a bunch of different machines set up, and then I do the Z-Sync option. So you can do Z-Sync, and it'll compare the copy of the ISO you have versus what's on the server, and then just do a differential download. So you end up only needing usually about 20 to 30% different, and saves you from having to install the whole or re-download the whole thing. And so, I mean, I think when it gets closer to release, installing on hardware makes more sense. Um, but I've actually gone through the test cases. If you go into onto Ubuntu's site, you can actually go in and they have some test cases set up where you know, 3 or 4 different methods of installing, and then different ways of partitioning and testing the installer, and so I've done that a couple times. It takes a lot more time than you might think it does. Spent the better part of a day doing, I think, 3 or 4 different flavors.
yeah, when I was up in Wisconsin, I had told any of my family members, I said, "Do you want to sit down and use some Linux? Be my guest." And I was hoping that at least an update would come down, um, so I could show them here. You know, you got Windows? Check this one out. But I never got a big update. It wasn't worth. It was like one item or two items. It wasn't worth showing them what to update.
It's a long installation. I guess I'm replacing the entire desktop system, so that makes sense. But
Oh, with the cinnamon. Is that what you're doing?
no,
Or this?
yeah, Jan, he came up with the idea of putting Kubuntu on top of Pop OS. So it was like, wow, that sounds great. I have to try that for myself. So thought I'd do it in the background while we were talking. All right, Tony, take it easy. See you tonight, hopefully.
So putting Kubuntu on top of Pop, replacing GNOME, or just
well, so it's on top, and there will be a bunch of GNOME stuff there. So I'll have to sort of weed it out. I'm not gonna use it. I'm just curious to see what you end up with. So I used to do that, but when I first started distro hopping, I really didn't. I didn't really understand the Linux file system, the way the desktops were reusing home and reusing dot files and stuff like that. And so I would just install things over top without formatting home, because I didn't want to lose my data. Now I have a separate partition for all my data, and I just wipe that every time I install. But yeah, you'd get some very interesting results whenever you do that. You install 3 or 4 different desktop environments using the same home partition. It starts to get a little weird. You get problems and you don't know like what's causing it, because there's just so many different leftover pieces from everything.
yeah. I don't know if you know him. He's been on my stream. The young man, Ricky Yu-Gi-Oh Master. He was trying different desktop environments on Peppermint. I'm like, and you can't call it Peppermint anymore. It's just, I don't. You might as well have just taken Ubuntu base and thrown something else on there. Because I think he even put i3 on it.
Well, Well, i3 though you can usually get away with because it doesn't. I mean, it reads the GTK themes and fonts and some of the underlying stuff, but for the most part, like you can definitely have like a KDE Plasma desktop and then an i3 session that kind of sits on top, and it's not going to interfere with each other. But yeah, there's the major desktop environments. They'll kind of step on each other. And even outside of distro hopping, I would just have, I'd have GNOME and Plasma installed at the same time and be switching between sessions, and that gets pretty weird too.
Yeah. I mean, like if I would stick with something like an Arch-based, what really makes it interesting with Arch is that now you can decide which type of environment to go into as you boot into it, which I guess depending on what you want it to do or what you want it to check out, it seems to me better to install those different environments than they have to install different distributions.
Well, I mean, yeah, definitely, I agree with that. And this is, the good old days of, before virtualization, when hardware was expensive and it wasn't like you just had 6 old laptops laying around or something like that. You had your main desktop, and if you were lucky, you had 2 or 3 different hard drives, and all of them were pretty small and all of them were slow. And hoped that you didn't blow out your MBR every time you were installing. So yeah. Oh, look at that. Pop Kubuntu. Pop Ubuntu.
Up to
Pop. No, that doesn't make sense. Cop? That doesn't make sense.
Kapop.
Kapop.
the Klingon distribution. Kapop.
All right, let's see what this looks like. I mean, I assume because it's just Kubuntu, it's going to just look like Kubuntu and not anything else.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. Yep. Oh, there it goes. So the only leftovers are going to be all of the GNOME apps. Maybe?
But
Yeah,
doing something like that, don't like, especially with Pop OS and the way they kind of customize, and set it up, and don't you risk taking some of that away? Yeah, it's, I guess from what even what Dusky Ryan, doesn't he use Pop once in a while? And isn't that what Rocco's been on? Is Rocco on Pop right now?
Yeah, he had been. I don't know if he still is. Yeah, there was sort of a pop revolution that kind of swept through. Adam had installed it, and then Kevin, and I jumped on. Rocco. Yeah, I think there were about 10 people altogether that just all jumped on the bandwagon, and that's fine. I mean, pop's amazing, so it's not like you're.
Yeah, I mean, I hear nothing. But when I tried it on the NVIDIA laptop, it did not at that time, because it would, you with Pop, you either install, you had the 2 versions, the one that's set up for NVIDIA, which I downloaded, and then the other one, I guess, which would be for Intel or AMD. And the screen was like at 640 by 480 because of, I guess, the driver that it tried to install for the NVIDIA. It's an older NVIDIA card in there, and I think the only driver that really works well on that HP laptop is the 340. Um, but since then, I think Ubuntu, especially coming up to 1804, they're selecting, the proper driver. So if it reads an NVIDIA card, it would install properly. And I hadn't had issues since they've done that. So I hadn't gone back to try and pop. But I guess trying to install a different type of environment on that just doesn't, to me, make kind of sense. Adam says, "Don't stifle my creativity, Eric."
I
Ooh.
would never do that. So here we go. Here's one of the fun things like I was talking about. I've got update notifications from both Elementary App Center and Discover now. Because Elementary App Center is still on here, obviously. So at this point you'd kind of have to decouple, and I would, if I was going to use this on my system for real, I would start looking at what pop specific apps to start taking off. But I agree with you, Steve, about why would you sort of override the whole point of pop is that it's the collection of things and it's all put together nicely. I agree with that, but the one thing I will say is that more and more for me, distributions are about what runs best on my hardware.
Mm-hmm.
And there are definitely times where something will run really well, but then it doesn't have the desktop environment by default that I want or something like that. And so sometimes it's actually worth going through the trouble of overriding the defaults and things like that. It's probably still not the best idea. I mean, it kind of goes back to the cinnamon crusade or pursuit that I've been on, where basically I think for me the ideal would be if there was just an Ubuntu proper cinnamon flavor. So Embrosyn has a PPA that you can go and install cinnamon 4.0.3 on top of 1904, but that's him compiling those packages, and it's not really a release, so to speak. It's kind of an override. And now that the latest version of Cinnamon is out, I'm not sure how long it'll take him to do those updates, and so that's why if you're not using Mint and you prefer Ubuntu, you're sort of stuck. And so that's why I'm using Arch Vanilla. I did a ArchFi install. If you guys haven't heard of that, ArchFi is a really nice installer option.
Yeah, I cheated. I used that when we did our Arch install.
Yeah. And it's basically, so you get the Arch install disk or ISO, boot to it, and then once you boot, you just do this wget archfi command, and it downloads a script. You run the script, and then it walks you through all of the different steps of installing it through different menus, instead of and it's all still terminal. It's not graphical, it's ncurses based, but it's sort of the midpoint between a full-blown Endeavor or something like that, where it's a complete graphical experience with the installer, and this is still, you're making decisions as you go along. So if you were to be a stickler for doing things the Arch way, that is, I would say that ArchFi is still doing it the Arch way. It's just helping you, instead of sitting there reading the wiki and typing in a command, and then reading the wiki and typing in a command, it's more it just is taking you through those same exact steps. And so it's an easier, you don't forget things. It's harder to forget because it's a logical sequence of process steps to go through installing. And when I do vanilla Arch, I inevitably have some kind of issue on my system, and I did ArchFi, and it, it just works great. So Arca Linux, there's lots of other options, Archman and stuff like that, but I really wanted to just have a. So one of my complaints about Endeavor and not being truly vanilla is that you do get some of that theming, like you said, it's got some of that Plasma sort of look to it, and if you install another desktop environment or something like that, you still have those GTK themes installed, and it's not a fully vanilla experience. And so if that's what you were looking for, then something like ArchFi makes a lot more sense.
I know even though it was ArchFi and it was a script and it was supposed to be easier, it still took me 3 times because I would miss something or.
Yeah.
So it still, yeah, it was a learning experience, and there are a couple of things that I ended up having to do. Like I really used to have a hard time getting into the terminal from boot up if I needed to, and I've learned now how to do that because of that. So I mean, there were some hiccups that became a helpful tutorial for other things.
Sure.
But yeah, I was so afraid at first, but now it's like, I don't know if I'd still go back and try, doing it from the Arch wiki, because even then, sometimes even the commands, as some have talked about when we were doing the challenge, if you didn't drill down, you still miss stuff. That it's not as user friendly as it's said to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's you have to go in through all the different links in the wiki to sort of drill down far enough to make sure, okay, if I've got Wi-Fi, I need to have WPA supplicant, and I need to have the display. There's certain things you have to have in there, because my biggest gripe about the Arch ISO installer is that when you boot into that Arch installer environment, there are processes and applications that are running that once you reboot, they're not there. So to me, what would make sense just as a convenience thing would be everything that's running in that install environment should be there and available. For example, so if I'm doing it on my laptop and I need Wi-Fi, under the Arch boot up, under the installer, I can just do Wi-Fi dash menu, and then it goes out and scans and finds it, put in my password, and it just works. Now, if I don't add display and I think a couple other packages, and I just finish the install, the base install, and then reboot, I can't get Wi-Fi anymore because it's just not there. The base install image that it put on the pack strap, install image that it put in there doesn't have it. And that's kind of infuriating because it's one of those dumb things that really it doesn't necessarily clearly say, hey, you need to do this because once you reboot, and doing the chroot is not that hard. So I mean, you can just put the ISO back, the USB key back in, chroot in, install what you need, and come back out. But it's just another thing, and that's, I guess, my one complaint with Arch is that they just I feel like they intentionally make it as obtuse and difficult on purpose. But anyway. All right, well, you know what? We're coming up on 6:30. We got about an hour and a half till Biddle. I think I'm going to go and grab some food.
Sounds like a plan. I got to plan out dinner.
I really, this has gone way better than I expected. I expected to have nobody. and instead we've had a nice little group here, and I appreciate everybody coming by. Steve, thanks for jumping in.
Oh, you're welcome.
Jitsi.
No, I saw your video you did earlier, that you were on, and I was unfortunately at work at the time, and I just pretty much got done typing a comment on there for you that I'll get the next one, and I see also, I see in the videos that are on the right hand side, Eric live. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a weird thing because there are so many layers to the streaming part of it, where you've got OBS, and you've got to get that set up right and have the bit rate and all of that stuff configured. Plus, if you're doing any kind of like a screen layout and putting, you know, any kind of like graphics, just trying to make it nice looking, got that part of it. And then you have to figure out the YouTube side of it, which is not, I mean, it's confusing to me, all the different settings and things. Like, I think I have it configured right, and then it'll say, well, live chat's not enabled, or anyway. So it's this part of figuring it out, getting comfortable with it, is what I was trying to get done this weekend. And I figured between, you know, your every other day streams, and I could jump in and maybe throw a couple other ones in there, and I'd like to do some live install ones and stuff like that. So just trying to figure out how all this works. But I really appreciate you helping me with Jitsi, and I always love your streams, and
Well, thank you, sir.
appreciate you being my first guest, if you will.
Well, thank you. No, it was great. I mean, you're I think you picked out a very nice template for your OBS streaming. It looks very nice. And you do a real nice job on your little tutorials, and I don't mean little as little. I mean you do them. They're not really long or overly, and you got a very nice way of speaking, and they're easy to follow. And sometimes I like doing those little ones because they're fun and they're a little. Hey, here's something you may or may not know about. You know.
Yeah.
And I want to try to get back to that. It's like either I spend a lot of time trying to do videos, or I do what I really enjoy in doing the open chats and having this live communication going and getting the feedback and all that. And everybody seems to kind of enjoy it to whereas doing a, for me, you know, I know I sometimes tend to, I won't script, I'll write down a couple of points, but I tend to talk a little bit slower and all that, which is I've gotten a lot of comments on the side about. Some have been very supportive and others have been kind of borderline nasty, you know, like talking too slow and all that. Well, you know what? You got ADHD, you can find someone else. You know,
You can always watch it later and speed it up too, you know.
well,
whatever.
I've gotten that comment. Hey, well, you know, watch this guy at 2 times the speed. You'll thank me later. Like whatever.
Whatever.
So
Hey, you know what? When you open yourself up and you put yourself out there, it's just, it is what it is. As long as the positive is more positive than the negative, and people just live to be trolls on the internet. So
yeah, that's true. I mean, you know, it's you know, no one truly. I shouldn't say no one. There's quite a few people that truly don't know how to be constructive in their criticism. I can because we do that at work all the time. Yeah, you know, you know, and I do that. Hey, you know, this is how you do it. Let me show you the proper way to do it. Or, you know, not going, you suck. What the hell did you do here? You know, that serves no purpose just to belittle somebody. And then you're right. There's people that just try to get your goat, and I just like, okay, whatever. You know,
it is what it is.
You know, I got a good core of people that follow and seem to enjoy it. And
yeah, well, it's our community. I mean, most of the people we know, and that's great. And I'm glad to have, you know, this group, because Rocco and I have been talking about this. You know, it's how do you, there's so much negativity. How do you push the positivity? How do you get out there? And the simple answer is you have to get stuff out there. You have to put content out, and whether that's streaming and engaging people, or whether it's putting videos out, or fiddle, or whatever it is, you know, the more positivity and the more accessible content there is for folks, that's how this works. You know, I mean, it's how I got into Biddle was through finding Michael Tunnell, and then Destination Linux, and then Biddle. And I mean, it's a sort of a path to find, but it makes me really happy to see these people, to know all of you, to, you know, to talk to you. And honestly, if those are the people who want to come hang out on my stream, your stream, like, great. And if we get a couple new people here and there, but if someone's negative and they want to come in, and it does, that doesn't affect us. It doesn't affect what we're doing. You know, that's not going to interrupt our conversation. And so that's really what I'm looking for out of streaming, is just it's a way to be more immediate. I feel like sometimes when I make a video, I make what I think makes sense, but without having the feedback, that you just don't know. And sometimes,
Hmm.
you know, some people are good about leaving comments on videos and things like that, but otherwise you just don't know. So I figure at least this way I'm going to get feedback, and whether it's an open chat and someone else is here with me, or it's just the live chat on YouTube or whatever. And also you just don't know until you try. So it's
Right.
something I've wanted to try. But yeah, I appreciate, Vince, that you enjoy the content. I like making it. I'm going to keep doing it. And Jan, yeah, I will. I wanted to get the preliminary streaming out of the way first before I started just saying, "Hey, come show up," and have it be a fiasco. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Practice, and then
yeah, I mean, Steve, I've seen your. I mean, I've watched you from when you first started, so it was kind of
um,
like seeing you
yeah. My
progress. And
early stuff is even now, but I mean, my early stuff is rough. No, I if I was doing this for a money reason, if I was doing this to be monetized, it would behoove me to be very professional and right out of the box. And that's not my intention right now. It was to learn and grow. And I've always mentioned that this has done things for me more than anybody can realize, and that's like my wife has been very supportive of it because she sees the big change, and it's all for the good. And just because I'm going to be 63 this year doesn't mean that I can't. I don't want to be that guy. Kids, get off my lawn.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Jan said, without the stream, you wouldn't have known about Pop OS with Kubuntu Desktop. You know, it's true. That is. So I think I'm pretty well read, and I find lots of little news articles and announcements, and I follow Twitter and this and that. But I learned so much from like the discourse forums, or from Telegram, or from the interactions I have with folks. And you know, Steve, to mirror your comment, I remember you saying how supportive your wife was. I remember one particular stream, you were in your kitchen, and I could see behind you, you had the island or whatever's
Yeah.
back there, the bar top. And I remember you talking about this was a cathartic thing, and it was just something you really enjoyed doing, and then how your wife saw the change in you and was supportive of it. And it's funny because my wife is the same exact way. Like I don't, you know, I've had some health issues, and so I don't get out as much as I used to. I don't get to engage with people at the level I used to. And so I think she sees this as a way for me to continue to, you know, move forward through my life, and you know, grow. And she's excited by it. And I love that she's supportive of it. And having this community, it's all sort of coming together in a way that I would have never had a reason to do this otherwise without this group of people.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's fantastic. I'm really enjoying every interaction I have. And so speaking of which, we got an hour and a little under
All
an
right.
hour and a half, and we'll be at
Well,
Biddle.
give me a
So
chance. I'll keep you rolling. So
no, I
might
know,
as well just stay
I
hang
know.
it up now.
Well,
Say,
maybe
click.
maybe I'll do the midnight post Biddle stream. No, I'm not going to. In case you thought I was serious. But
All
anyway,
right.
thank you everyone so much for coming.
Thanks for
Um,
having me, Eric.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And I will see you
See
guys
you all
later
on
this evening.
Biddle.